Oh, it's 6:30. Good evening, everyone. All of you, good evening. You got enough room? You got enough space here tonight? Good, good. We can stretch out. Kent, do you have enough room to stretch your legs back there? We're good. Fantastic. Good to hear it. So yeah, good evening, everyone. I know your time is valuable, and I appreciate you taking time to be here to get some information about our upcoming referendum that will be on the ballot at November 4th election, and learning more about this. The main thing tonight is about information and understanding. This is not about persuasion. It's here to give you facts and information about the upcoming referendum and really about what the future of our school looks like moving forward. Tonight's goals. I can't stand up here. This is way too far away. We'll see if the microphone works. That's way too formal. So tonight's goals, some of the things that we want to talk about tonight really is these items right here. Understanding why this referendum is needed, listen to kind of what's being proposed here, and see how it impacts students, taxpayers, just the information about knowing when and how to vote, and then certainly time to ask questions and share your thoughts. And certainly we're very informal here, so if you have any questions anytime, please raise your hand, speak up, and we'll address that right away. So the first thing is the need. State funding has not kept pace with inflation. Over the past, since 2003, we're down 19% in terms of we've fallen behind where inflation is. And so with pressures, obviously everybody has pressures on their budget. Nearly 75% of the districts in the state have an operating referendum in place. And this year there are actually 43 districts that are offering or proposing a referendum on their ballot. The average of those 43 districts is $818. We're seeking $500 increase. Like I said, the average, we're well below the average of $818. Operating costs continue to rise, especially for our salaries, benefits to keep us competitive and be able to recruit and retain high quality staff. Classroom materials, our insurance, property and liability insurance went up 17% last year. And also, of course, health insurance costs, as everybody feels, has gone up significantly. Our district reserves are below the school board's goal of 15%. Literally, we're limiting our flexibility on what we can do. And also at the same time, that really limits, should something big come up. Everybody needs savings, we all need savings at home, to cover any unexpected costs. We have a rooftop unit that goes out that costs $15,000 to replace. That makes a difference. We have a hot water heater that's nearly 30 years old at Northside that went out, $14,000. If we don't have savings for those, we have to make sure we have issues. So we want to make sure we build back to that 15% fund goal of savings. 7% right now. So we're less than half of the goal. Without new local support, class sizes, staffing, and programs could further be impacted without that dedicated funding. And as last says, this referendum helps maintain the quality education. And the two questions, quality education and the modern learning spaces and tools for our students to make them successful in the classroom, but also successful for their life after high school. Some of the funding examples, so the current authority, we currently have a referendum in place of $689.20 per pupil, and that covers a very small portion of our district's total operating budget. Just for example, as you can see, our English department and our math department take up nearly all of the funding that comes in on our current operating referendum. This means that nearly all the funds are already committed to our essential core curriculum. This is the main reason that we have, as I mentioned earlier, the state has state funding. We get well over 70% of most of our revenue comes from the state, general ed funding. And that's the issue that all districts are wrestling with right now, is that gap, this gap right here. This is where we're at with funding. This is where we would be if it kept pace with inflation. So trying to cover that gap between the funding we have that doesn't cover inflation to this point to cover the inflationary costs that we have. That gap is a difference of $1,420 per pupil had it kept pace with inflation. And that's the difference of what districts are trying to cover. The state is not covering, the federal government is not covering it. That's where local taxpayers are being asked to make that up in that funding gap from the state. So that shows very clearly the real issue with the lack of state funding that public schools have received since 2000, going back to 2003. Like I said, that's 19% under funding due to lack of inflationary costs. Some of the things that we've done, a lot of people say, well, we need money, but what have you done? The school board has been very frugal and responsible in their funding and use of the funding. The past 2 years, we've reduced more than $1 million from our budget. We have deferred maintenance and equipment purchases this year. So we didn't do any capital projects this year or any other deferred maintenance to reduce our expenditures this year. Clearly that is not sustainable. We know in our homes, if we don't do deferred maintenance, it builds up. So we know that that's a one-time fix. We cannot continue to do that, but it's something that we needed to do with lack of funding. We've also pursued all the grants that we can and that are available. Just recently, for example, the school was awarded a $50,000 cybersecurity grant that we will be using to enhance and elevate both our cybersecurity and our actual security. So updating some of our firewalls, updating our cameras and surveillance cameras that we have in our district to help with both our cybersecurity and our school security and safety of our students. We have consolidated positions and shared services throughout the district. We have not replaced two secretarial or office staff that retired. We did not replace our high school principal. We have not replaced one of our elementary teachers. So the school board has done a really good job of seeking ways to reduce those costs without funding available. So what's on the ballot? There are 2 questions. And you're probably wondering, well, why 2 questions? Why not just put it all in one question? The 2 questions are very, distinctly different and legally different. So the first one is to increase operating levy, and that is for the general funding of the district. That funds the day-to-day operations of our school district. That pays for all of our staff. And staffing in this type of business, staffing is over 75% of our costs. So about 75% of our costs or more is dedicated to staffing. So increasing operating levy, that does the day-to-day, that pays for the staffing, that pays for utilities, that pays for the maintenance of buildings, deferred maintenance, things like that. Utilities, pays for insurance costs, things like that. So that is one, and that can be spent on generally anything that's required for operations. The second one is create a dedicated technology levy. That can only be spent on technology-related needs. Nothing else, only technology-related needs. And that would include devices, that would include infrastructure, that would include different things that are related specifically to that. That also includes the staffing related to maintain all of our technology. So 2 separate questions, 2 very different questions. And that's why they're separate questions. So question 1, increase the operating levy by $500 per student. So that will go from $689 to $1,189.20. As I mentioned just a bit ago, the school board has been very responsible with their funding. So $1,189 is actually 50%, about 51% of what the district could actually ask for. The state sets a cap that school districts can ask for per pupil, and that's about 50%. The state cap is just about $2,300 per pupil. So the school district is asking for what is needed, not more, just what is needed to maintain our programs. And that's what we're here for, this funding is to maintain what we have. We're not looking to build additional things, it's to maintain the great things that we have built to this point. Also, renew and expand the district's existing operating authority. And this really generates a stable funding over the next 10 years. So the district can plan for the next 10 years. They know the revenue coming in and can plan accordingly. Question 1, who pays for question 1? That applies to house, garage, and 1 acre of land. It does not go on ag land. So it's house, garage, 1 acre of land, and it goes on commercial industrial property, but not on ag land. As I mentioned before, it's designed to maintain, not necessarily expand, programs and staffing. Could that bring back a couple things? Potentially, depending upon how much funding is available, but it's to maintain the great programs that we have. What would these funds be used for? We talked about this a bit ago. So retaining quality teachers and staff, maintaining our smaller class sizes, sustain core academic and elective programs, so maintaining what we have, support student services and activities, and cover essential operating costs, utilities or transportation, classroom materials, and all those things that go along with our day-to-day operations for a school district. Interesting. We run food service, we run a bus route, we run education, we run activities program, we run a lot of things in school. It takes a lot of funding to run all those different specialized areas. Some people have a restaurant, we have a restaurant. Some people do transportation, we also do transportation. All those things within a school district. Okay? Yes? Yes? Yes?
So that one basically does not hit the farmer's big thing. It's in 1 acre and not a.
Correct. Yep, that is correct.
That one is going to need to be home for sure.
Yes. So no, this one is only really residential and commercial industrial. Yep.
That's the one that, I mean, there's going to be so many people that are talking about this.
Correct. Yep, so it's important to have that distinction about who pays for each one. Yep, exactly right. Okay, moving on to question 2. It creates a dedicated capital project levy for technology, and specifically only for technology. You know, technology really came about during the pandemic. When school was closed down, we had to have students learning from home, so schools got devices, got technology, and now that funding is gone from the federal government, COVID funding is gone, and now how do we maintain what we have so that our students have this technology skills that they need moving forward. I know it's very important, our teachers are cognizant of that. I know screen time is a very big deal for a lot of families, and it's not the device, it's not the only learning tool, but it is a part of a learning tool for educating our students and preparing them for life after high school. This would generate about $300,000 per year for 10 years. This is on a levy. So this is something that the school board will look at each year when they set their levy. If there's a year, we actually have a 10-year technology plan on when different devices and tools, smart boards in the classrooms, things like that, infrastructure, Wi-Fi, hotspots, those types of things. So we have actually a 10-year plan for switching those out. And so some years, if there's a less amount that's needed, the school board could under-levy that if they wanted to. If we don't have a need for all 300,000, they could under-levy that on any one of those years. But the main thing is it provides stable funding. We know that we can have, this year we have like Northside Lab, all the students at Northside have devices, so instead of a computer lab with desktop computers, due to a lack of funding this year, students are bringing their devices to the computer lab and utilizing those. Is it ideal? Not necessarily ideal, but they're utilizing the devices that they have.
Dennis, can you clarify if we rent those devices or do we own all those devices?
Great question. Do we rent or own all the devices? All of those are purchased. It applies to all property types, including ag and commercial, industrial, and residential. And it's focused on keeping classrooms modern and connected, so that students are connected We all hear about AI, we hear about it all the time. So how do we teach students how to leverage that, how to use it in a meaningful, productive way, like they're gonna have to use most every student in their job at some point will be touched with AI in the next few years, if not already. So really just keeping students connected and secure. Secure funding source each year so we know we can maintain. So this is about what we have for our inventory, and it takes a lot to maintain those. It takes cost to replace those, ensure that we have those in the hands of our students. So this is replacing our aging devices. We have 687 Chromebooks. We have 346 iPads, primarily at Northside, grades K through 4. Smart boards, so our teachers use smart boards. Those are in the classroom to enhance their instruction. We have 49 of those. 20 are 15 years or older. And so they're at or near the end of their life. And so, addition to that, we have, each year we have Go Guardian. That helps. We have WISER training for our teachers, for cybersecurity. Go Guardian is a program that allows teachers to track where students are at and to see what they're doing on their devices when they're in classrooms, or in the building actually even at home, so it tracks them in all areas. And so all those tools go into technology, helping our students be safe and being able to use our technology. Upgrade Wi-Fi networks and strengthen our cybersecurity needs, and then maintain software and digital learning tools used daily in our classrooms. Support career and tech ed equipment and class innovation. That goes along with our CNC equipment and some of those things. It goes along with our CAD that our students do. It goes along with the software that our students use in graphic design. It goes along with the software that they use in accounting class and our business classes. So all that goes into our tech. It's not just devices, it's the software that students are going to have to use. It's the software that Mrs. Zink teaches kids how to do accounting or how to do bookkeeping, those types of things. And then ensure students and teachers have reliable and up-to-date technology for learning, to support their learning in the different ways that they use that in the classroom. Questions about question 2? So funding overview for the 2 questions. Question number 1 generates about 1.1 million per year in operating revenue. So that would put us slightly over a balanced budget and allow us to build back into that general fund toward that 15%. Question 2 generates about 300,000 per year for technology improvements. Based on our last audit, we have, in our 10-year plan, so we have about between 130 and 150,000 yearly costs for keeping our technology up to date over that 10 years. And it's about 140,000 right in that number for our support staff. We contract with the county for our tech services. So we have Rob Lee oversees that whole department. Michelle Samuelson is here most of the time between here and Northside. And then they also have Christy Johnson that works with the county and with Human Services. So it's a nice shared use of resources. If we had to employ our own, it would be way more expensive. So that's a nice way to share costs with the county. We work back and forth. If we have a lot of needs, like a new computer lab comes in sometime and they need to set it up and prepare it, all 3 can come here. Sometimes they have to go there, but we have someone dedicated here to help inventory all those, go through them all summer, make sure they're ready to go for the next school year, then hand them out, keep them updated, those types of things. And then both our 10-year authorizations beginning in tax year payable 2026. I'm going to turn it over to our business manager, Katie Foley, and she's going to talk a little bit about the tax impact. we'll have it up on, specifically coming up on a couple slides for average home value, average ag land values.
So if both questions pass, you can read up there that property taxes will increase an estimate of 0.1773%. So again, like Dennis said, it would be in 25, okay, it would be the, when tax year would be in 26. School district would start recognizing that revenue in our fiscal year 27. And I have with me the levy for 26, and currently the levy makes up 26.16% of our total revenue budget. So it's about a quarter. Our operating levy is 3.22% of that, so that's our current operating levy. The $518 per student. The new levy would be 6.89% of our levy, and our technology levy would be 1.88%, so it's about 8.5% increase. But also I do the star there. Our levy does grow kind of like it's not smooth, because our levy is effective. Our levy is this many days, and there's a lot of calculations in here based on state laws, but a lot of it is based off of the number of students in the building, and that changes daily. So our levy kind of goes like this, and for the levy that the school board, the preliminary levy that they approved, the levy is actually going to decrease 2.86%. So that will go down. So even if we do pass both of these questions, we'll see a very negligible effect on property taxes, because the levy is going to go down, or general levy is going to go down for next year. So in that, in some years it will go up, but it's kind of like this. So, and it's also just such a small impact what the school district can do on our levy. Like I said, most of it is state law, and kids are here. This is the one time that the school and the community can impact our levy. The rest is just really not up to us. We don't get to decide, how many kids are in the building, or what dollar value per pupil we get for certain items. If you have questions that you would like answered, please just reach out to the business office every day. So happy to go through anything that you would like to talk through.
Thanks, Katie. So mailing went out today to all taxpayers within our district. So everybody that pays taxes in our district, not people that just have kids in school, but every taxpayer in our district. So that mailing went out today. That will have this tax impact statement on it as well, along with some of the other information. Really, basically, so the school currently has a levy in place, like I said, at 500 some dollars per student. That's what this is. So here's what we currently have. So that would be removing that, so reducing that tax impact. Here would be the new one. So here's the net total on question number 1, new net total, and then here's the net total for question number 2, and then here's the total with question 1 plus question 2 is the total. So you can see what just question 1 would be, what question 2 would be, and obviously, given that we talked about before, Mr. Hobbin brought up, question 2 is really all about mostly on ag land. So residential with question 1 and question 2 passing, there's really minimal tax impact for question number 2.
So what is like the minimum, like say 300,000 estimated market value, what was the total impact of both questions?
We'll come up to that in just a bit here. Yeah, thank you.
One other quick question here.
Yes.
You have that 0.177 percentage point increase, I assume? What
Yes.
is the current percentage points for property taxes that ties into this?
It would be half of that.
So it would
About
be,
half of that.
currently it's about half of that,
Yep.
right? So it's well, I suppose you're doubling.
Essentially doubling.
So, all right,
Yeah.
fair enough.
Yep, exactly that. So just a little more than less than half of that, right about that. So yeah, very small percent. Like Katie said, what taxpayers, the percentage within our budget of voter approves levy on our total budget is only about 6%. It's a very small percent of the revenue that actually comes into the district, but very, very meaningful to make up that gap, as we talked about before, between what the federal government, state government provides and hasn't provided it to maintain some of the staffing that we have. You know, one of the things I want to share, there's so many pressures on the budget outside of the control of the district. There's a lot of policies that are put in place by federal and state. A couple examples would be unemployment insurance that just was approved a couple of years ago by the Minnesota legislature, so that all hourly employees can get paid during the summer unemployment. If they apply, they can get paid summer unemployment. Right now, the state funded it through this coming summer, and after that, there's no funding for it. And we budget about $100,000. If all of our hourly staff took that, it would be about $100,000. And right now, the state has really said, we'll fund it for this summer, but moving forward, probably, well, certainly not, because they're going to have a real deficit. We've got a $6 billion deficit the state is looking at in the next biennium. So they passed a law. This is what we want, but we're only going to fund it for 3 years, and after that, you're on your own. And what they said the last session is, when they finally agreed to fund it for one more summer, was, well, if schools want it, they can either pay for it themselves or they can levy it on taxpayers. Well, that doesn't make any sense. Okay, so now it's taxpayers. So that's one of the things. Compensatory insurance. Compensatory funding is, so Benson is a high poverty school. We have over 50% free and reduced in our school. And now the state has done free meals, and I'm not saying free meals is wrong, I'm not saying unemployment insurance is wrong, it's just that those policies fall to schools. And so now schools used to get, you know, if you have more free and reduced students, there's something called federal compensatory dollars that you get the funding to, because it costs more money to help those kids get caught up, generally. That's the reason for that funding. Parents used to fill out free and reduced forms, those came in, and that would determine your free and reduced and the funding you got. Now that meals, every student gets a free breakfast and a free lunch every day, parents are like, I don't need to fill out a free and reduced, everything's free. Why would I fill it out? I don't need to, it's free anyhow. So the state can't figure out how to determine free and reduced for districts. So right now, unless they change something next year, Katie and I have been calculating, working on that, we will lose about $175,000 in compensatory funding for our district to be used for smaller class sizes, to be used for our instructional assistants to help the students. So some of those pressures are on, in addition to others, that's just a couple examples. Those are big ticket items that really affect schools' budgets and will likely then end up local taxpayers doing it. So that's very unfortunate. So a lot of those things are pressures on our budget. The other thing we're looking at is how do we position our district for the state $6 billion deficit. When that happens, schools get less money. Right now, they have a blue ribbon committee, special ed, to do special ed. That's another pressure on our budget. So the state says you have to do this much for students that have an IEP. Federal government says you have to have this much, you have to do this much for students on an IEP. Yes, we do that. The state is supposed to fund theirs at over 60%. They fund it at 14% right now. The state, or the federal government, and the state has bumped theirs up, but right now we are covering, it's called a special ed cross subsidy. Sorry to get in the weeds, but that costs us almost $200,000 every year to pay. We take out of our general fund to pay for those special ed needs that are set by the state and federal governments, but they don't fund. So cross subsidy is a big thing for districts. We keep pushing that, but haven't gotten a lot of traction on changing that. So tax impact examples, so this is what you're looking for. $150,000 home. Question number one would be about $112 for the year. Question two is about $18, so $130 for the year. Our average in our district is $174,600 is the actual average home in our state, within our district. And so average home would be $130 on question one, $23 on question two, $153 total for both questions. $200,000 home, less than $150, $27 on question 2, $176 for the total for both for 10 years. Commercial and property, about $250,000, about the average in our district, $186 for question 1, $67 for question 2. So just about $250 annually on commercial. Ag land in Swift County, the average is $8,600. We have actually a sliver of our districts in Polk County, and a sliver of our district is also in Chippewa County. Polk County is a little over $6,000 an acre. Chippewa County is $10,000 an acre. Swift is $8,600 an acre. So 63 cents per acre on question 1. $0 on question 1. It doesn't fall on ag property, and 63 cents per acre on question 2. And then $8,000 non-homestead is 0 on question 1, $120 or $1.25 on per acre on question 2. So about right around our average, about $13 per month. So how do we compare with our neighboring districts? This is on a value of $175,000, average value of our home. Right now, as you can see, Benson is on the low end. Minnewaska is running $15 or $20 million bond and have the election in November. So that either stays the same or bumps up. Montevideo is planning on running a building bond in next spring of around $40 million, somewhere in there. So that might change. And I know Hancock is running an operating referendum in November as well. So we're on the low end. As I mentioned earlier, the school board has always tried to ask only for what's needed and use those responsibly. So that's for estimated market value of $175,000 home. If both questions passed on this one, just so you know, we would be right about in the middle, right in this area. So right about in the middle if both questions pass, because like I said, everything would be on question 1 and really very little on question 2. So how does it look if we have homestead? So this is on $8,000 homestead property. Benson is the lowest out of all of the neighboring districts. And if both questions pass, we would be in the middle. So go from here to here and both would be in the middle of those neighboring districts. So once again, just being responsible and asking only for what's needed. This is for $8,000 non-homestead. Once again, we're at the lowest. This is a little over $3 per acre, and it would go up to a little over just about $7 per acre, and be right about in the middle. So that's $8,000 non-homestead ag land. Just how the school benefits, stabilizes the budget and reduce the risks, provides really dedicated funding and stable funding for our school moving forward. Make sure we can pay our teachers and staff, retain them, recruit staff. With teaching shortages, as we all know, we need to be competitive in what we pay our teachers and our staff. Maintain smaller class sizes and maintains our programming so students in our high schools know these are the classes we can continue. Updates our technology and infrastructure to support modern learning, and it strengthens the school board's long-term planning and financial sustainability. Just knowing this is what we have, now we can plan and make plans for multiple years out to make sure we provide the best education possible for our students. How does this benefit our students? Obviously, very critical. Protects these academic programs and electives that keep learning. It improves the access to technology for hands-on and the real-world living that our kids are going to be living in now and will be as they move on after our school. This is a big one. This is huge. Supports mental health, counseling, and student services. People ask, what's changed? A couple things have changed. We used to have 4 special ed teachers. Now 21% of our enrollment of our students are on an IEP. So we have 8 special ed teachers. When I came to Benson in 2006, 2007, when we talk about mental health and counseling, we had a half-time social worker in the district. School employs 2 full-time social workers, and we partner with Woodland Centers, and they have 3. We have 5 social workers and practitioners in our district, and we could use 2 or 3 more and still be busy. They're busy. Their caseloads are more than full. Those things make a difference. Our mental health of our needs, students, and we want to protect that. That's what keeps students engaged and keeps them healthy and keeps them learning and provides really healthy adults for our communities in the future. Keeps our class sizes small and allowing more individual attention, and then prepares our kids for success in college and career. So we can maintain those electives that our students need to be prepared for what they're going to do after high school. How about our community? What does that do for our community? Obviously, we have strong supported schools. That's going to attract people to move here, workers, employees. It's going to attract businesses to come here, and it provides the skills that we can provide our students, provides a workforce for those businesses. And then, obviously, community pride and involvement is critical. Schools are the heartbeat of our communities, especially small schools or small communities, and it's critical that we have strong, healthy schools. This is very important. So all the funds that are generated come to our school. As Katie said, the county says, okay, what does the school have on the levy? They calculate it across all property values. That's set by the state legislature. And they collect those and they send a check to the school, or they transfer the money to the school through the counties. So it's only used here in our school. It doesn't go anywhere else. It's used here in our school, those tax dollars for operating levy and for capital technology funds. One question, obviously, that comes to mind is, okay, well, you said can only be used for technology. Are you sure about that? And we get audited every year, independent audit. We have to be audited every year. They come in, they go through, they're on site for a week, 3 or 4 days to a week each year. There's probably 3 or 4 accountants, and they go through our books and they check those things. So if we were to not use those dollars as intended for technology, they would catch that, and we'd be in trouble. So independent audits, public finance reporting, and Katie does a presentation to the board every month on our expenditures. School board oversight for all spending and fund use, and then we have regular updates that are posted on our website. Our audits have to be posted on our website so we can check out our audited numbers. So accountability, yes, it's going to stay here, and they're going to be spent for their lawfully intended reasons. How to vote. Election day comes up on November 4th, so it's coming up very quickly. City tells us the Benson Army is going to be ready. So that's the polling place that the city and the county have identified as their polling place. So we have one polling location, 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. And then also absentee voting. If you aren't able to make it on the 4th, you can stop by the Swift County Auditor's Office. You can either pick up a form and take it home and do it, mail it back in, or you can vote right there. So some different ways. Lots of facts, lots of information on our website. You can check that out. We'll continue to be putting things on. Like Katie said, if you have any questions, contact her, contact me. Also, on that referendum page website is a direct link to, if you have anybody that has ag land, you can put in your parcels and you can see exactly what the cost would be. And if you're not sure, call Ellers. Their number's right there, and they will walk you through exactly what your tax impact would be too if you're unsure. And they do that all the time, and they're really good at that. So they can tell you what that looks like. All right, questions?
I might have a few here, but I don't
Perfect.
think there's too much competition, so stop me if I don't
Yes.
have much.
So as Katie said, she had a whole list, there's, I don't know, pages of levies that the state says these are levies that schools have. In September, the school board sets their preliminary levy. And on that tax, on that levy for technology, that's set at a maximum of 300,000.
Right.
If that year, there wasn't, you know, let's just say instead of 150,000 in tech needs, there's 120,000, 110,000, whatever the case may be, they could under levy that by that number and say instead of, we were asking for 300,000, or yeah, maybe we need 280, 250,000 that year, something like that. And so they could do that. Now, 50,000 over, you would see it as maybe $1 on your, it's not anything big, but they could do that, yes.
But, I mean, have people done that? I mean, it seems like, yes, sorry?
Every single year, we make those decisions.
Every single year it has been bouncing up and down. Okay.
And we do so because there's many different types of levies, we do under levy, a lot of our levies. CTE, I put in the budget, and that's how they decide that's our initial levy. And then when we spend less, then we under levy, and back, the employment insurance, we under levy for that. So, yes, that does
Okay.
happen quite a bit, and it happens often.
Good, good. Then on the technology thing, I guess I'm just wondering, do we do an assessment of whether some of the technology that we're getting and focusing on is really needed? Because obviously, everyone knows the more tech you have, the more stuff breaks down, right? And I don't know for sure how everything works here, but I know 25 years ago, I started my engineering career at a company that had a whole bunch of really impressive conference rooms with smart boards in it, and nobody used them, right? They were too inconvenient, they didn't work well with presentations, storing stuff you scribbled on there was a pain. So basically, nobody used them. We could have just as easily had a bunch of pull-down screens with projectors. And so, you know, I understand classrooms a different situation, but some of these situations like smart boards or duplicate computers for the lab and for students, I mean, have we really evaluated whether we need all the technology we've had in the past? Do we use it appropriately?
It's a great question. I'll start with smart boards, because you mentioned that. Smart boards, actually it was 2008. There wasn't one in the district, so my second year, I'd come from a district that used those, and so we had 2 teachers that used them the second year. Tried them. We never put them in every teacher's. In fact, we still have teachers that don't have a smart board. I'll give you an example. Mr. Grusing, tremendous teacher. Do you want, no? No, I like my whiteboard. I like my whiteboard. This is his first year, he's had a smart board and he loves it. But it's never, we built as teachers, got trained. The big thing was, if you want one, you gotta go through training first, because we're not gonna just put one in your room and exactly what you, to your point, and say, well, now you're just gonna show, you know, a slide on it or whatever like that, you know, like we used to have the old overhead projectors and stuff. If it's gonna be used like that, then we'll just put a screen and we'll just leave you a screen. So that technology, not all of our, even all of our teachers have a smart board in their room. If they do training and they are using it, then yes, they would have one. Devices, same thing. We evaluate what do we need to do for devices. Everybody has one now because of COVID. Now they're getting to the end of life, and now we have to assess, do we need them? So let's say, for example, kindergarten. Does every kindergartner need an iPad? Exactly, you know, and do we, or like we used to have before COVID, we had carts, and you could check out, or then we had one per grade level. If you want one, then you could go check it out and use it. So that's now, as we go on and we talk about our tech, evaluating what does that look like. After everybody had one from COVID, now we're at the point of replacing, because we're, you know, tech years is 5 years is a long time in technology. Devices aren't built to last that long, or tech gets old. So do we need those? And so doing analysis of that. Do we need technology? Do we need, everybody need that? Is a Chromebook the right thing for kids? You know, we have kids that summer kids are doing some PSEO, they have theirs. Is a bring your own device an option? Would you rather have your own, bring your own device, because some kids have their own laptops, and they want an Apple laptop that's going to take to college, so they get one as a junior or senior, and they don't need a Chromebook or something like it, a school issued device for that matter. So yes, we do analyze those to see what do we need. There's quite a long list. We have about 30,000 just in cybersecurity and support. JAMF is a device that's used for iPads to help with the security and the updating those. We have some of those things that we need to do each year for those devices. That's just software to help run those devices. But yes, to your point, something we analyze and look at. We don't just throw devices at people. We don't throw smart boards at teachers, say, yep, you gotta use it. Or we're gonna put it in your room because it's cool, and even if you don't use it. Because they're expensive, and you want a return on investment. Yeah, we replaced two smart boards this summer because they didn't work, and now the old smart boards used to have a projector in the ceiling, projected down onto the screen. Now they have a built-in projector. They don't need a projector, but they're $1,500 a board. So yeah, we don't replace them if they're not being used as they intended, for sure. So yeah, it's a very good question.
I went visited all the classrooms last school year between January and the end of school, and that was kind of my goal, was to get into every classroom, and I was so impressed with those smart boards and how engaged those kids were and the things they were learning on them. I mean, I never had that, even though my kids were younger than Andrew, and I just couldn't believe the stuff they could do with these. And, you know, there was a couple classrooms that had the older ones, and she's like, you know, what's your wish list? What are some things that you would like changed? And just asked a lot of questions. And that was kind of a lot of the things is we'd love to get an updated smart board, or we'd love to be able to do this with that. And I was just impressed with the things they could do and how entertained and how engaged those kids were in their learning from them. It's crazy.
Smartboard doesn't make a great teacher, but it enhances learning.
Oh,
It
yeah.
really can enhance
Kids were
learning.
so engaged, and kids were too.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Other questions that you have?
Are the two intertwined as far as like the levies? If you can vote for the first one if you want to, could somebody vote for the second one and not the first one?
That's a great question, Ken. Yes. So there's not a contingency that the second one can only pass if the first one passes. So let's say the first one, the operating passes, but the tech doesn't, no problem. Then we have that funding and not that funding. So yeah, very good question. They're not tied to each other. They're completely separate. And something, you know, I didn't include up there, you know, I've had a couple people ask, so what happens if it doesn't pass? It's hard to know, depends upon what the state does for funding, all those things. But, you know, $1 million out of our budget is a lot of money, and that impacts, we've cut, like I said, we run very lean. We don't have a high school principal. We have 2 office staff, over the past 3 years, 3 office staff less to support. So a lot of people were doing a lot of different things. We don't have really any other place to cut besides getting into classrooms. When we talk about staff, it's staff. There's nothing else to cut. We're blessed because we have an 8-period day. We're one of the only districts in the area, and probably a wide area, where our kids can take choir every day and they can take band every day. And that's been very important. So if we ever had to make reductions and go to a 7-period day, that would affect some of those electives. Our kids so between their 9th grade year, 10th, 11th, 12th grade year, that's 8 additional classes with an 8-period day that they get, 8 electives that they get that they wouldn't normally get. Think about an 8-period day with their 4 core classes. They get, if they take a study hall, they get 3 additional electives every semester. If they don't take a study hall, they get 4 additional electives every semester. So they can take band and choir and still get 2 additional elective classes on top of that. So those are all things that are concerns if this was to not pass. the other question is, how does a tech help the school's funding? Well, right now, we don't have a tech levy, we only get limited funds, and that comes from capital. So we do get a capital funding from the state, that's set by the state, so it depends upon per pupil. And we have to utilize, and that's basically for classrooms. But in order to do the tech, we have to use some of that tech, so it comes out of classrooms. So if we had the tech 300,000, that wouldn't then have to come out of capital. It wouldn't have to come out of our general fund to pay for the support staff that support our technology. So that's $300,000 that helps our general fund. By not having those funds come out of our general fund, they are dedicated through the levy. So it's direct impact, the benefit to our operating or to our general fund. So they do, while they're not tied together, they're separate, they do both benefit our general fund. Other questions? I don't even know what time it is, but it's time. Thank you so much for coming in. Please call if you have any questions, stop in, talk to Katie or I, go on the website if you have specific tax impact questions, call Ellers or check on that site. They can, there's a tax calculator right there, and you can check your specific taxes exactly. Appreciate you being interested in our school, we really appreciate that. Awesome, thank you, have a great evening.